The Met Gala for 2026 just wrapped, and for fashion lovers, this is our Super Bowl. This is our World Championship. This was our Olympic finals. But I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of boring. Nonetheless, I think we should talk about it because this might very well be one of the last Met Gala red carpets that we get to review. If you're only here for my critique on the fashion that we saw on the red carpet, the best, the worst, check the description box below for the timestamp where I start talking about those. But if you love a good chit chat, you love a good lore, let me start by telling you about the past, the present, and the potential future of the Met Gala. The Met Gala is actually a fundraising dinner for the Metropolitan Museum's Costume Institute. The first Met Gala was held in 1948, and it was conceptualized and hosted by Eleanor Lambert, who was basically the Anna Wintour of her time. She was the top fashion publicist for New York City, and she was herself a New York City socialite. So she conceived this party where she was able to convince the who's who of fashion, the who's who of society to pay for a seat at the table at New York City's Party of the Year. It was held in renowned hotels like the Waldorf Astoria, and then eventually they decided to really create that connection with the reason for fundraising by hosting the event at the actual Metropolitan Museum of New York. And of course, eventually it gained more and more popularity, and all the elites wanted in on this private dinner. And it got to the point where created basically the Met Gala red carpet, where attendees would step out of their vehicle, walk the red carpet, have their photos taken and published in these major publications to build their public persona, of course, to get more attention to their businesses. And then when Anna Wintour herself took over as chair in 1995, she was able to foresee a future where more publicity would be better for the gala. Remember, the purpose of the Met Gala is to fundraise for the Costume Institute to preserve fashion's history. So as the chair of the event, who ultimately decides who gets on the invite list, Anna started inviting huge fashion conglomerates like LVMH, who are now able to purchase an entire table and sponsor mega superstars in entertainment, further boosting the popularity and the publicity of the Met Gala. So even huge Fortune 500 companies, ultra wealthy billionaires who have nothing to do with fashion are able to pay as much as $300,000 per table at the Met Gala. And of course, you'd think that this is great for research and development, for curation, preservation, and sustaining the Costume Institute. But this breeds controversy. When you get to pay to play, the higher the number you're able to pay, the larger your stake is in this Met Gala. And it seems like that has happened over the years, and it's caused much controversy, especially during times of economic downturn like we're experiencing right now. There are always calls and boycotts. That was no different this year. One of the major sponsors of the event, singular donors, was the Bezos. Jeff and Lauren Sanchez Bezos donated a significant amount of money, rumored to be $10 million, to this year's Met Gala. And rumor has it, unconfirmed and alleged, that this afforded Mrs. Sanchez Bezos a seat as a co-chair for the event. And people did not like this. But here's the thing, we may be going into a future where there's no longer a Met Gala. So an endowment fund had been started for the Costume Institute in 2016 with the aim of raising as much as $100 million in principal capital by 2030. And the purpose of this was to be able to fund the operations of the Costume Institute in perpetuity, indefinitely. It's basically an investment fund where you have a principal amount and you invest it in different assets, stocks, whatever your portfolio has, and then the dividends or the profits from those investments are really what creates the money that's needed to operate the Costume Institute. Allows for, as I said, more predictability, more stability, and stricter policies can be in place where huge donations do not dictate the ultimate operations and outcomes of the Met Gala, the Costume Institute, and fashion's future. And yes, we might have a year or two left of the Met Gala before they hit their 2030 target year, but the Met Gala itself has grown vastly unpopular. Nonetheless, I was excited leading up to this year's Met Gala. The first Monday in May is not only significant for the Met Gala event, but it launches the Costume Institute's spring exhibition. And this year's theme for the exhibition is costume art. And the dress code for the Met Gala is usually somewhat of a spin-off of that theme, and the dress code with fashion is art. Okay, so let's talk about my predictions or my expectations going into this. the designers. I expected to see tons of Schiaparelli, tons and tons of Schiaparelli. This is Schiaparelli's house code. I remember seeing a really funny meme of Daniel Roseberry and how bewildered he was thinking about the amount of work that he would have to put in for the Met Gala. And surprisingly, there were only 2 Schiaparelli looks on the carpet. So there's a rumor that due to their hefty donation, Lauren Sanchez Bezos basically bought the rights to be one of the only few persons in Schiaparelli. Again, rumor, unconfirmed, alleged. But it was very disappointing to not see Schiaparelli show up and show out at an event that was basically created for him. I was also expecting to see a few good looks from Iris van Herpen. However, the one look that I did see was one of the more show-stopping looks. It was interesting, and it was this bubble dress. Eileen Gu was just walking up the stairs and bubbles were just coming out of the dress surrounding her. They were very cute. It was very innovative, and I appreciate that, at least. I was also expecting to see a lot of Mathieu Blasi Chanel and a lot of JW Anderson Dior. With all the talk and the excitement about their collections at their respective design houses, the Chanel pieces were very so-so, and I didn't see a lot of Dior, and the one Dior that I did see I thought was okay. I remembered it from the show, but then I opened the comment sections under a video where they were showing it, and someone said it looked like a bulb of garlic, and I just couldn't get over that. I also anticipated a lot of Saint Laurent pieces. Saint Laurent was the major fashion sponsor for the event, and I was very underwhelmed with their presentation. For them, a lot of the looks were very, very tame, to the point where the ones that really stood out were this look by Hailey Bieber, which was supposed to reference archival YSL, Madonna look. It was referencing a piece of artwork, and it was pretty spot on. It didn't hit because it seemed like quintessential Madonna. I'm very happy to see that one of my predictions came true, and it's that Robert won the night with his looks. More than a fashion designer, he is an artist, and every single look that Robert Wan created for this Met Gala was a talking point. As for the themes that emerged from the hundreds of looks that went up those stairs of the Met Museum, we saw a lot of nudes, skin tone, flesh tone, a lot of illusion draping, marble illusion drapery. There was, of course, emphasis on human body parts. A lot of the men pointed out that they were wearing corsets, and I think that all of these themes are the result of the designers, the stylists, and the attendees all coming together, and they basically read the same page of the same book, which is that they got firsthand or first viewing of the actual curation of the exhibit. In the few photos that I saw, this is what you can expect to see when you visit the Costume Institute's costume art exhibit for 2026. However, another unexpected theme I saw come out of this was that of family. Saw Nicole Kidman and her daughter Sunday Rose. I felt the warmness in my heart when I saw Simon for Jacquemus with his grand-mère Liline, who is Jacquemus's fashion house ambassador. They looked heavenly and divine. Rihanna and A$AP Rocky, who appeared fashionably late but could not stop looking in each other's eyes. They were oogling and googling with each other in every photo. Everybody was talking about that moment with Beyonce, Jay-Z, and Blue Ivy Carter. Finally, it's time. Let's talk about the looks. And I'll start with the co-chairs. I have to give them their own special little segment. Contrary to popular belief, the role of the co-chair of the Met Gala is not to be the most fashionable people on the red carpet. More than anything else, their duty is to raise as much funds for the Met Gala. Again, this is a fundraising event. And Anna Wintour selects her co-chairs each year for the Met Gala, not solely based on their superstardom and how much publicity they can generate for the event, but also because they are noted to be amazing philanthropists. Their role goes way beyond looking good on the red carpet. But at the end of the day, did they? Let's take a look. Venus Williams, a tennis mega superstar. She had such a massive impact on the sport, not only through her talent, her hard work, but also through fashion. Along with her sister Serena, they've both taken many risks and influenced the trajectory of women's fashion in tennis. For all the events leading up to this year's Met Gala as co-chair, Venus Williams had been serving looks. So I expected quite a lot from her on the red carpet. And I wasn't so disappointed, but I was wasn't wowed. I thought she looked gorgeous in this custom Swarovski outfit, but the best part about this is the story behind it. She is actually wearing an outfit that was inspired by an artwork of her. It's a portrait of Venus Williams that was displayed in the National Gallery. The neck piece really is the star of the show here, and it symbolizes so many different aspects of her life, her impact on the sport, as well as pulling in her ethnic background. Nicole Kidman was another co-chair for this year. She is award-winning actor, producer, and she has great relationships with a lot of the major fashion houses. So it wasn't surprising that she showed up in a major fashion house, being Matthew Blessy's Chanel. I think she had one of the better Chanel looks for the night. Sequined gown that fit her to perfection and just mermaided out into a trail. And I love the excitement of the feathers. Of course, we have to talk about Anna Wintour. She herself is basically the monarch of the Met Gala, and she has her very unmistakable look that's signatured by her classic flowy feathery bob, her dark shades as always, and she's always going to be in some ankle length, floor length gown with an overcoat that's just as long, and it's most likely going to have a floral design. But she said, hold up, I'm going to switch it up this year. I'm going to excite you this year. And she wore this Chanel number, this gorgeous turquoise blue. I love this. The different gradients in this are amazing. It was more feathery, but if you know, you know. This is actually almost a direct replica of something she already wore to the Met Gala's red carpet in 2019. It's just a different version, but honestly, we don't hate it. And then the final co-chair of the night was the Queen, the most anticipated, Beyonce. She was making her return to the Met Gala carpet after a decade of not showing, and we were all excited to see it. As much as this was one of the best looks of the night, I don't think it was one of the best looks for her. It was a very dramatic, exciting look by Olivier Rousteing, who worked with Beyonce so many times when he was creative director of Balmain. And trust me, it was dramatic, it was out there, it really energized the place. It was this somewhat bare bones take on art. We saw the skeleton outline of this glorious dress that was just decked out in rhinestones, and on top of that she just went overboard with the headpiece and the chopard neck piece. It was amazing. It was just fantastic to see, and not to mention this dramatic feathery ombre train that was probably the longest I've ever seen on a red carpet. It took up the entire staircase at the Met. This look, 10 out of 10. But I have to say, it was very ill-fitting and it didn't move the way it really should have moved. The sheer underlay, or the piece over which a lot of the art was sewn, was just not good. When she moved, when she had to lift the gown to climb those stairs, it distorted the figure of the dress. But nonetheless, as I said, one of the better looks of the night. So on a night when majority of the looks were very tame, very underwhelming, low-key boring, these were the looks that stood out to be the worst. This one is very controversial, but I'm still gonna say it. I didn't like it, and I think it wasn't appropriate for the Met Gala. And it's controversial because it was pretty much on theme, but I think it was one of the worst looks because it looked very gimmicky, and it was Heidi Klum. Everybody knows Heidi Klum is Halloween queen, and I think she really just brought her Halloween experience, or just her Halloween aesthetic, to the Met Gala, and it didn't translate as well. She wasn't the only person wearing prosthetics. Bad Bunny actually came as an older version of himself, and I think he did a better interpretation of the theme than Heidi Klum. She really just came across as doing another Halloween look. Another look I'm putting in my worst dressed is also very controversial. This look by Babita Mandava was a Matthew Blessy design. It was basically a take on her look that she opened their Métier d'Art show with in New York City. And it's not jeans and a shirt. This is actually kind of like a trompe-l'oeil effect. It's made out of silk. But I just think it looked bad. Like, why would you wear this? Like, why would you style someone in this? Chanel. Hudson Williams also had a look that you expect to be good, but fell completely on its face. This actually looks like a hot mess. Dumpster fire. This was really bad. The color was very bright, and I think that's what's really captivating, and his makeup looks like it was going somewhere. But this was a very disjointed look as well. It was just like, why does everyone have a trail? Not everybody needs a trail. And when a man is trying to be dramatic in his red carpet looks, you don't need to add a trail. SZA. She is my girl, one of my favorite singers. I love her energy, I love her vibe, and I get it. The color, very bright, it really captures you. But it was also a hot mess. It was just a clash of things. And in her interview, she pointed out that it was a lot of inspiration from different cultures, and she loves different cultures. But there is a way to do this. There is a way for art and for fashion to be intentional. That's when it's good. And this doesn't look intentional. And this one I hate to put here. I hate that I put it here, but I'm very disappointed in Serena Williams. Serena, unfortunately, is one of those persons who has been constantly critiqued for how she looks over the years, not only while she was playing the sport of tennis, but also just being a celebrity. She has always been critiqued. And I think she's being critiqued heavily because we're rooting for her, always rooting for her. And she finally hit the nail on the head with the hair and the makeup. Perfection. I think she had one of the best hair and makeup for the night. But what is this look? It looks very generic. It looks like when someone just read the theme or the title of the project they're supposed to do, but they actually didn't do the reading. They didn't go into the chapter. And this looks like what you would immediately envision when you think about art and fashion. Portray some Greek goddess, maybe, most likely. The people who I think are just lazy, even when they were wearing some of the most amazing looks that had exceptional stories behind them, they made it come across as really boring. They're basically just wearing something that they always wear on every red carpet. Kylie Jenner was actually the only other person in Schiaparelli, and this is an amazing Schiaparelli. This is a perfect take, exceptionally perfect take on the theme. But there's something about Kylie wearing it, it just looks like everything else that she's worn. Kim wearing this piece, I don't recall, I'm so sorry, I don't recall the artist behind the bodice, but very famous artists, very famous works, and they are very memorable. But this is something Kimberly has done every single year at every single event. It's getting exhausting. Kendall is probably one of my favorite Kardashians. Honestly, she is a favorite. It was just too close to what Kylie was wearing. I understand Zach Posen. I love what he was saying. I love the fact that this is Gap. I think that is pretty intriguing. It's supposed to represent the winged statue in the Louvre. It's the winged statue of Samothrace, I believe it's called. Gorgeous. I love it. I love it more than anything else with this huge like trail veil thing. This photo, if I had seen this photo before I wrote my notes for this video, I would probably not have put her in this section, but otherwise it just looks like something they've done every single year. Another person who does the same thing every single time is Gigi Hadid. I listened to her story. It was still lazy. I'm sorry. Like, can you just look like something else other than yourself? Follow the theme at least. I hate to say this, but Angela Bassett is also someone that kind of does the exact same thing. A lot of times. There are moments when she really stands out, but this was not one of them. I love the story. She wanted to represent a painting that was done during the Harlem Renaissance. But as much as she was trying to convince us that that is the story behind it, I think it still just looks like a prom dress, and I hate that for her. Gwendolyn Christie also had what you would think would be one of the better looks, one of the more dramatic looks, the more exciting looks, but it's something she's done multiple times, and for that reason I think she really had to be in this category. I also think Georgina Rodriguez does the same thing all the time. She does prom dress all the time. She was on theme though. Had one of the best corseted looks, but she was not one of the best looks for the night simply because she looks like herself. She looks like this is something she wears all the time. She looks like this is something that she got from her collaboration with Guess. You know, someone who used to fascinate us on the red carpet until we realized that she was just showing up as herself and looked the same way every single time, and she did the same thing this year, is Blake Lively. And I'm not just hating on her because of what's going on, but this was just a really nice, beautiful gowns, really nice. That's it. Janelle Monáe and Christian Siriano would have been in my best dress list because she was on theme. She looked amazing. She's, you know, created interest, intrigue, but it's something she does every year. And usually I would appreciate that, but in the grand scheme of things, it didn't hit the way it usually hits for me. But this is the type of intentionality that I was hoping to see in SZA's look. I appreciate it in Janelle Monáe's look, but it really just seemed like her all over again. I have to sneak these in here. They're not my best, not my worst, but I love the stories behind them. So I'll just put them in this category of stories that I like. We already spoke about Venus Williams. That's a story behind the look that I love. I also love this look on Amy Sherrill. Amy Sherrill is actually one of the most prolific painters of our time, and she's actually wearing a Thom Browne look inspired by one of her very own paintings. Isn't that insanely amazing? I love everything about that. I also love Sabrina Carpenter's look. A lot of people had her in their best dressed category. I don't. Her shoes really threw the whole thing off. I know she has to wear platforms because she's a little cutie patootie, but I didn't like the shoes. Her dress is made of film, like film that we used to produce movies on. And the specific film that made up her dress is called Sabrina. Isn't that amazing? It's a Dior look. Amazing Dior look. I love this interpretation by Jonathan Anderson. And I think that's really fun. It's totally Sabrina Carpenter. These were the people who delivered. They served the tea and they served it hot, and I enjoyed every drop of it. At number 10 for me is Jeremy Pope in vintage, archival Vivienne Westwood. I love this. He was styled by Law Roach. Perfect interpretation of the theme. A perfectly outstanding look for the men. Majority of them were... I don't even want to go there anymore. We're talking about the best. Number 9, I'm going to say is a tie, and it's between two South Asian royalties. So Isha Ambani in this Gaurav Gupta look. I loved this look. I know a lot of people don't like the idea of a mega wealthy person who they believed paid their way into the fashion spotlight, but I really liked this look and I loved the story behind it. She was, of course, highlighting South Asian culture through her sari, and I love that the bodice was decked out in her own family jewels. I also love the little bag that was holding the mango, which is actually not a real mango. It was made of steel, so everything about this was art. Karan Johar, he is more Bollywood royalty, but by way of men, he really set the tone. He was one of the earlier looks that we saw, and he was wearing a literal work of art. This was hand painted. It was very customary to South Asian culture. This is what you expect to see when you go to a museum. This is what you expect at an exhibit. You want to stand, you want to look at everything and take everything in, create your own interpretations and compare to the actual story. And that is what I love about this look and why he's in my top 10. 8 for me goes to Sierra. She dressed as her interpretation of Queen Nefertiti, that strong Egyptian queen who eventually was designated as the goddess of fertility. Sarah embodied Nefertiti in every way. And I love when there's effort put into a look, and I can tell you, you can see the effort that was put into the hair, which is the most symbolic aspect of Queen Nefertiti. She was most notable, or we know of Queen Nefertiti in art through the many heads and bust sculptures that we see in different museums representing her through Egyptian history. Number 7 for me is one that not many people are talking about. I think was under the radar, but I loved it. And it was this look on Paloma Alcacer. So she is actually wearing a piece that was created from multiple vintage, like 1920s gowns that they were able to source from eBay, as well as other upcycled items that were put into this dress. Would have also put her in the category of best stories behind the look, but I think she genuinely had a really good look, and that's why she's in my top 10. This was created and hand painted by Francisco Riso, and I think not only does it look good, it's inspiring as a piece of artwork, but I think she was styled to perfection. As a model, Paloma knows exactly how to be a canvas, and she was a perfect canvas for this look. And as I said, I loved the styling. I loved the corseted boots that were thigh high and just complemented the lining of the dress. I think everything about this was amazing. Number 6 for me is another underrated look. I don't see enough people talking about this, but this is Grace Lang wearing her own design by her fashion house. Remember seeing this look? I spoke about it in New York Fashion Week. This was a part of her Spring Summer 26 collection, and I pointed out how vastly different it was from all the other Spring Summer collections that were shown at New York Fashion Week, and I loved it then and I love it now. When I saw this, I was stunned. I was gagged I loved this look. 5, I have to say, is another tie. Sabine Getty in Ashi Studios. This is going to be a memorable look. Love everything about this. It was truly on theme, highlighting the human body, fashion mirroring art. She, again, here is basically just a walking canvas for you to appreciate the art. The other person who holds the number 5 title on my list is Skepta. It might look very simple, not wow you, but in the grand scheme of things, as I mentioned, a part of the theme of the exhibit was to highlight art within different time periods and within the different human experiences. And for me here, Skepta's look represents modern art. It represents urban art. It represents a set of artists that are often underrated, underappreciated, like tattoo artists, graffiti artists. And that is exactly what I loved about Skepta's look. I had to put him in the top 5 for this. Coming down, we're in the big 4, and at number 4 for me was Anakiai. Yes, the Balenciaga dress was dramatic, it was great, it was Balenciaga, it was gorgeous, it was perfectly fitted, but we all know that the look was in the face. The artist responsible for this look, chef's kiss, perfection. This is how you stop a show. This is how you create memory in someone's mind. Apparently the story behind this, some were saying that she is representing the Black Madonna, the Mater Dolorosa, the sorrowful mother, the mother of Jesus, Virgin Mary. And she did exactly that. It was amazing. I can't. Number 3, Rihanna. Queen Mother, Queen of the Met. Actually thought she was going to show up after Beyonce. Usually the huge superstars are the last to come after Beyonce left the red carpet, or the stairs rather. Most people kind of went inside. Vogue completely cut off their coverage of the entrance of the attendees. However, Rihanna showed up a little later. Amazing in this Maison Margiela look. I remember seeing this in their show and it was just as fascinating to see. But Rihanna, of course, had it custom made for her, and she bedazzled the top, the sleeves. It followed a similar theme to Anakiai, where a lot of the look was really in the hair and makeup. Of course, the makeup was going to be on point because this is the mother of Fenty Beauty we're talking about here, but her hair was also very gorgeous. I love that it's just sleek, but there were metal coils, metal curls created to be a part of the look. And I said, I love a complete look. It's more than just the dress. I love everything about this, and I appreciate that Rihanna gave us a show-stopping look that I put as my 3rd best look of the night. Number 2, definitely Emma Chamberlain. She started us off very strong. She was one of the first looks on the red carpet, and because of her, I thought we were in for a treat. Boy, was I wrong. But thankfully, she really started us off, and I remembered her look throughout. It really was the standard by which I was rating almost every other look for the evening. She's wearing a custom interpretation of vintage Mugler. As a lover of paintings and textures, this was everything to me. This look was actually hand painted. Again, here, she was a canvas and this was painted on her. I love the trail that is flowing. It was full of vibrancy. It just looked like a landscape on a painting. And for me, that is art. That is fashion. That is fashion as art. And we've arrived to my absolute favorite look of the night. You probably were wondering why I wasn't mentioning this look before, and it's because it's my favorite. And it was Chase Infinity in Thom Browne. Yes, this look. I'm not the only one who was excited for this look. As soon as she stepped out of her hotel, everybody was just so excited. They couldn't wait. There were so many photos of her before she hit the actual Met Museum, and when she did stand in the light and the photogs started to flash, I was amazed. Everything about this is gorgeous. It was bold, it was beautiful, it was eye-catching, it was obviously on theme. There's so many different elements to it. This is so memorable, and I love the fact that this is not only artistic, but is also very wearable. It is fashion. It represents a human body. A very inspiring look. I think she struck gold, and in our Olympics or World Championships or Super Bowl final, she is the winner. Let me know what you think about these looks from the Met Gala. How are you feeling about my ratings and reviews? Until my next video, stay fashionably well and go to hell.